Hi, everyone. Start with the checklist to ensure meetings are compliant with the right to know law. As chair of the Weare School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as the result of COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting via Zoom, that we provided public notice both on our website and it was announced on Facebook. If you have an issue, you can email jacqueline.co@sau24.org. I would say type in the chat, but if you're having issue, you probably can't do that. Let's see. We will adjourn if the public is unable to access it. All votes are going to be roll call votes. So we're going to start with roll call attendance. We'll start with the school board. So Christine.
Here.
Jean Heath is here. Sarah Button.
Here.
Daniel.
Here.
Right. Rochelle Kelly. And Wendy Curry. Okay, Jackie, can you announce your staff?
Jackie Coe, I'm at the SAU. Natasha?
Natasha Colminen, I'm at home alone. Martha?
Martha LeMahieu, I'm at home as well. Greg?
Greg Reinert, I'm in the SAU building. Chris? No Chris? Anybody
No
else
Chris
live?
tonight. No Chris. I
Oh,
gave
Chris tonight.
the night off.
How about Jess?
Jess Potter at home alone.
Sean?
And Sean Hilliard, who can now hear you. Yay.
Yay! All right, Phil?
Phil Matsky, at home in my office alone.
Right, and the other Jackie?
I'm at home alone.
Okay. Anyone else, Jackie?
I think that's it.
Okay. We should probably do the Pledge of Allegiance, right? Even it's an emergency meeting? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag
of the
of the United States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and justice for all. Okay. We have a couple amendments to our agenda, a couple quick ones. We have a resignation and an FYI on some grant money. So this is up to the board. We have two ways of doing this. We can get a motion to change the back to school model and have a second and then have the discussion, or we can have the presentation first and then the motion. So if anyone wants to make a motion now, we can do that. Or we can wait. All right, I guess we're going to do the presentation first, Jackie.
All right, I am going to turn it over to Jess and Sean. Sean, you are able to share your screen, or I can do it either way.
It would be great if you did it. Thank you. And I believe Jess starts first anyway, so that's why.
Okay. Let me just, here we go. All right, so we are excited to bring back our kindergarten students into the building for more face-to-face instruction. We have been able to offer more instructional time. Also, we're excited about for our virtual learners. To make this happen, we did have to reshuffle our classes a bit. We took our two kindergarten teachers who were each teaching 2 sessions of face-to-face kindergarten and 2 sessions of learn at home in the afternoon, and reorganized them to teach an AM session 5 days a week, and one would teach a PM session 5 days a week to the learn at home students. So we've got two teachers, both AM, 1 teacher PM face-to-face, and 1 teacher PM for learn at home. That way we can continue to offer instruction for learn at home and face-to-face. So this does slightly, I can't see the slide, sorry, but I think we're going to go to the next slide. This does slightly increase class size to roughly 14 students in face-to-face instruction. When spaced apart, that averages between 3 and 5 feet, depending on the classroom layout. We took into consideration transportation needs. In fact, 13 students in kindergarten will be added to our already existing AM and PM runs. This does mean that students on at least 2 buses could be less than 3 feet apart. However, we're working with all of the other existing riders to see if we have siblings that we can obviously pair up together. So it is likely that students in grades 1 to 3 will see a slight bus increase in their morning or afternoon runs to accommodate the new stops. Currently, we have 1 van that picks up our kindergarten students. Sorry about that. After the AM session. Now we will need an 11 o'clock pickup van or bus and a 12:15 drop-off van or bus. Based on parent feedback, we predict that the 11 o'clock transport will have about 9 students and the 12:15 will have about 3. The kindergarten teachers did amazing work in a very short period of time, taking into consideration the needs of parents' schedules and their input. We started with parent input first, and then we looked at class needs, special services, kids' preference with their peers, and we did our very best to be able to create a structure that both the parents, the teachers, and the students would be very comfortable in. Safety measures don't automatically disappear with all of this, however. We will continue to deep clean between our sessions. And I just also wanted to note, because it came up, it's actually been mentioned a few times in social media posts. It also came up in our parent input survey. We have always offered recess and will continue to offer recess. In fact, recess this year has increased in grades K through 3 this year, and we will continue to offer recess in our kindergarten class. I believe that summarizes pretty much the Center Woods impact because grades 1 through 3 have already been back to school full time.
So Jess, could you clarify with no lunches in the building, is that specifically for kindergartners?
Just for kindergartners,
Okay.
yes, because of the schedule.
Right.
Any other questions?
All right, Sean?
Certainly. So as we know, we're moving to a 5-day for our middle school students. One of the biggest things that have to be looked at is actually our schedule. We did need to create new schedules for all of our grade levels. And just so our community understands, there were some real drivers that necessitated those changes. One was creating a 5th block. Right now, we only have 4 blocks of content in our 7th and 8th grade levels. We needed to create a 5th block to accommodate the additional sizes of our classes and also to accommodate some of the courses that not all of our classes take, such as integrated and our Spanish and French. That necessitated moves even down through 4th and 5th grade. So if you hear that those schedules have changed too, that is true. We had to move recess for them. We had to move all lunch periods. Right now on a hybrid, we are able to use 1 satellite location for our middle school. And then while that's being cleaned, already have the other in our CAT. We're not able to do that any longer as we'll need to use both spaces. So we have to stretch out some time for those. I did mention that we needed to do some things for integrated and our world language, but we also have to look at reserving a cohort for our Learn at Home students who are taught by our in-building teachers in 6th, 7th, and 8th. And so those were the big drivers that went to completely breaking our schedule and creating a new one for our 4th through 8th graders. Our next slide. That does talk about what we'll be looking at for potential class sizes. This is a little bit of a moving target as we continue to have people take a look at whether they want to stay with a Learn at Home model or not. But as of this afternoon, Our average class size in 7th grade would be 25 students, in 8th grade 22, and in 6th grade 23. That does put us slightly over what we had measured out for some of that physical distancing, but only slightly. And so we are, confident with all the other things put in place that we can do this in a safe and effective manner. One of the potential difficulties was to create all these new cohorts in order to meet the needs and the drivers I just told you about in the schedule. Does mean that many of our students will be traveling with a new group of students. It wasn't just simply combining cohort A and cohort B, particularly in 7th and 8th and mostly in 8th grade. So those students will be traveling with new groups of students they may not have had in their class before, but do remember in 7th and 8th grade, all students get all 4 teachers. So it's not that they're being exposed to new teachers, it's just those cohorts are a bit different. We now will be able to have the ability to travel to some instructional areas, as we are also opening up some of our unified arts areas because of those larger class sizes and the ability to meet those needs. We have been in contact with the bus company, and we will need to have, in many cases, 2 to a seat in order to combine those students on the upper L and middle school run. It won't be every single seat, but numerous of those seats would have 2, which again, just is talking about those spacing needs that come up, but we believe the benefits of bringing these students back do outweigh some of these negatives that we need to address. Wanted to just touch base on what we see as continuing the way it is existing right now around PPE and the few things that will slightly change. We can no longer guarantee that consistent 3-foot social and physical distancing. We are, of course, looking at that for our transportation in particular, but in some of our classrooms. We, of course, will, though, continue to wear masks. We'll continue to have those mask breaks to give those students an opportunity to not spend the entire school day with their masks, and with the weather turning, we can actually do that on a more regular basis. We will continue with our health screenings. If, in fact, though, we do have a positive case in our building, we do want our community to realize that our contact tracing is going to increase because we now are potentially going to have more students within that 3-foot. We are going to have more students on a bus, even if we look in front and in back and follow the pattern we've been told. We're now potentially having 2 students seated in a seat that before there was only 1. We do also anticipate some slight cost increases because we're going to have twice as many middle schoolers in for those days. So we're going to go through a few things a little more quickly. We have, again, reached out to Cafe Services to talk about what lunch will look like. We will continue to use both the spaces. Most people haven't had the opportunity to be in our building, but right now we have both our lunchroom set up with desks at 6-foot spacing and small tables set up in what was our large music room. We will continue to do that. And again, we've made a schedule that has a minimum of 5 minutes between lunches so we can clean each of those services before the next cohort comes in. So some of this work has begun. We've begun to redistribute those students. We've already scheduled additional custodial staff to move the additional furniture that will be necessary into the classroom spaces and those unified art spaces. The bus company has begun to create those new bus routes, looking at any changes in pickup and drop-off times so they can communicate that to parents. We've talked about cafe services, and even our middle school staff has begun to look, because another consistent change across that 6th through 8th grade band is the need to look at lesson plans that will be for 5 days in person versus the hybrid model we've been looking at. And that's it in a nutshell. Questions about that?
I have a bunch, but I'll wait. Go ahead. Anybody else have questions? Go ahead, Christine.
I do. Could you explain the world language? You said that because of transportation and world language, there would be less, it would be a closer cohort. What do you mean by world language?
So I'm sorry, I may have lumped a couple things together. So we will be closer together, but we also will have just more students in our classrooms. The The changes in cohorts was impacted by our need to put together world language students, our French and Spanish students in both 7th and 8th grade, because right now with a hybrid schedule, they were receiving that instruction on their off-site asynchronous days, and now that doesn't work.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
I have a question.
Sure.
So with the full remote cohort, will they be in their own class, like in their own class period, or will they be like Zooming or Google Meeting in during a live class?
Well, those numbers are changing, but right now that was a discussion I had with Natasha today about how we best meet the needs of those students. Right now, they are in their own cohort. And in fact, I'm just going to pick a grade level. At the 8th grade level, it is actually a large class size. It's over 20 students, so they become their own group. But we will respond to those numbers if they continue to change as far as putting our cohorts together.
Okay, I'll go. So several questions. You talked about opening the UA rooms. Are they going to be opened up for regular classrooms, or we're now having UA in the UA classrooms?
We need to now move UA into the UA classrooms.
Okay.
Because of the size of those students, and then bringing the extra materials in, it just doesn't make it work.
That makes sense.
Academic.
So is that going to impact music if lunch is going to be in the music room?
Oh, great question. No, so we have a keyboard room that's next to our full music room. We've got the keyboards out of there, and we're going to reset that up as a music room. It won't quite be the same, but it will still meet the need better than we are currently with music on a cart.
Great. Okay, so busing, because that's been a popular conversation. Are you going to have to extend the time that you do pick up and drop off as a result, or?
No, so we did look at what would impact our drop off and pickup, and we actually did even a car count to take a look at that. And you don't know it until you live it, to be quite honest, but by all indications, we will be able to stay with the staggered arrival that is currently in place. With the understanding that we're going to live it for a while, and then we might tweak a few things.
And your buses are only middle school and upper L, or do you have high school people on your buses?
No, the bus routes now pick up exclusively for our building, so 4th to 8th grades and drop off.
All right. Mask break, is that outdoors only, or is there an inside mask break?
So we, whenever possible, do go outside. When a mask break occurs indoors, we separate the students, and that's when we use a common room, maybe for half of the class. Things like that. Some of the bigger spaces will move some of the students into to cut those class sizes in half, so we know they are 6 feet apart for that mask break. But that we've only had a few inclement days we'd have to do that on.
Perfect. My last one is an easy one, hopefully. So when the weather gets better, are you considering an outdoor lunch?
Yeah, we've already even done some classes outside, and we're looking to expand on that. So, if you're doing a read aloud or you're doing book groups, we fortunately have lots of spaces to spread out on. We are also looking to take one of those groups on a rotating basis and eat outdoors, again, weather permitting to a certain degree. But yes, we want to use our outdoor space even more now that our cohorts will be larger.
Excellent. Anyone else have questions? Christine?
I have two more. Is there a certain date, maybe this is more for Jackie, that people who are remote, the learn at home kids, the parents would have to make the decision so that we could get a better idea of what the actual numbers are going to be, or is it going to be flexible?
We've requested all of the learn at home parents let us know what their plans are for the remainder of the year. The survey that went out to K 6, 7, and 8 does have an April 19th shift date. So we've requested to know whether or not they want to move back in on April 19th when all of this potentially happens, depending on what you all decide tonight. And then parents who have asked if there will be another opportunity, we've basically told them there won't be a mass opportunity, but we will take individual requests case by case. Grades 1 through 5 received their survey probably in the last 48 hours. And they were actually given 3 options: to remain and learn at home for the rest of the year, to shift on April 19th, because we recognize that some parents' employment might be changing as a result of the governor's decision. And they might have other siblings in the home that are moving. And so April 19th might be a more natural date for them, or May 3rd, which was our original plan. Phase 4 of Learn at Home was going to be May 3rd to the end of the year. So grades 1 through 5 have those choices. Jess had already worked with all of the kindergarten parents individually to find out what they needed and what their desires were. And so, again, this will be the last time we ask everybody to fill out a form, but we will certainly work with individual families on a case-by-case basis as we need to.
Great. Oh, I have one more question, Jackie. So I assume you've talked to our unions and the teachers and the paras, and they're okay with this plan?
I mean, Dawn and I have been in communication. We're working through some things. You know, the agreement that we put in place at the beginning of the year did talk about a 6-foot distance, but you, Dawn, and I are working together to work through that.
Okay.
Actually, mine has a little bit to do with that too. So, and I know 7th and 8th grades is a little bit different, but do we have enough teachers to continue doing the Learn at Home and the face-to-face?
I'm going to let Natasha, she's been working on that.
Okay.
I lost you all for a second there. So in terms of the 7th and 8th grade, as Sean talked about, those are all the same teachers. And there's enough students who are in the Learn at Home program for them to be their own section. So essentially the teachers rotate through their kids, but one class session or period a day, there's no kids actually physically in front of them. 6th grade is a little bit of a problem at the moment. And Sean and I met today to talk about that. And we're meeting with the 6th grade Learn at Home teachers tomorrow to try to brainstorm some solutions. And that is probably due to the fact that there's just low enrollment in 6th grade at this point. Most of the students have elected, or if parents have elected for them to go back into the in-person model. Grades 1 through 5 are dedicated Learn at Home teachers. So they don't teach both in person and Learn at Home. That Learn at Home is all they do, and we have sufficient numbers to maintain that program. And at this point, we would maintain that program even if there were very few numbers, because that's, you know, part of the mandate from the governor is that we still offer a fully remote program.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Sure. You're muted.
I've had some concerns about, and I was wondering, you know, what kind of accommodation was in place for parents who would like to have their kids come back to full time, and that might have masks or medical exemptions for wearing masks. I was just curious what was in place for that.
Right from the beginning, we were working with families with that. Those you know, mask exemptions are very few and far between, but we deal with it as we do any medical situation.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. And then I did have a question about the music room situation. That you said that they moved the keyboards out and they were moving in where they were. You said they were working off a cart currently.
Yeah, so when we first began this school year, we decided to limit cohort movement as much as possible and any mixing of cohorts, because we wanted to make sure we were being as careful as possible not to have any positive cases go through our community, and we've been really successful. Nothing has occurred that way. But what happened was, in our building, there's 2 large music rooms. One is a traditional music room, one is the keyboard room. The large music room we took over for a lunchroom. And at this point in time, up until this 5-day opening, because of the structure of our building, a number of our unified arts teachers were actually traveling to a classroom and doing the instruction in that classroom because students weren't moving. They weren't moving throughout our building throughout the day. we now have seen that there's some other ways to respond to this. And so we are going to have students moving in different times of the day as a cohort. And the size of these classes make it be that it makes sense for our students to have the best education in music along with the other, to have them move into that other space. That was what was considered a keyboard room. Those keyboards are out because they won't just be doing keyboarding, but we will put a piano back in there, music stands, chairs, and things like that. So our music teacher has a more ability to have an even more robust program with those students.
Thank you.
You're muted, Wendy.
No, I'm just really, really quiet. Thank you. So no more questions? All right. I'll entertain a motion to change, what's the word, Jackie?
Models.
Change our models, yeah?
Do you want public comment before?
Well, I thought what we could do is we could have a motion in a second, and then we could have public comment if it's okay with the board. The other option is we can vote on it and then have public comment.
I'd like to have public comment before voting.
Yeah. Okay, so have a motion second, and then while we're in discussion, open up the discussion for the public to do the public comment at that time. Does that sound good?
I'll make a motion to change plans and go to full-time 5 days a week.
Great. Do I have
I'll
a second?
that motion.
Oh, I think Daniel beat you. So Christine's first and Daniel is second. Do we have any more board discussion before I open up public comments?
I want to thank the administrators, because that was, I know it was a discussion that was already happening, but it kind of had to go on the fast track. And I was given a lot more details tonight than I was expecting. So thank you very much for being so thorough with that as a parent and also as a board member. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd second that.
And I didn't, Jake Morrill was also part of Sean's team, and we didn't call on him in the opening. So want to make sure he's included.
Okay, so we're going to do public comment in the middle of a motion, which is unusual, but we do want y'all to have an opportunity to speak. So what we'll do is there's a little hand raise under participants. If you have the older Zoom, if you bring up the participants, you'll see a hand. If you have the newer Zoom, reactions at the bottom of the screen that I'm pointing at, which you can't see where I'm pointing, but under reactions, you'll see raise your hand. So if you'd like to speak, please do so. Let's see. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Jackie, are you seeing anyone? Okay. All right. Anybody in school board think of extra things you wanted to talk about during that break? No? All right, so we have a motion to move to the next phase of this crazy COVID year. We'll do a roll call vote. So Christine?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Wendy, yes. I still don't, Rochelle, you're not there, right? Okay. All right, so that motion passes. We are going back on the 19th. Quick question for Jackie. Are you guys doing a half day, the last day before the 19th to prepare students? I think I heard that at the high school level. No?
There's an early release coming that's going to be dedicated towards that preparation.
Okay. All right. I would like to really thank the union, the teachers, the paras, everyone that's going to make this happen. Certainly this is not ideal. You've already been so incredibly flexible and hardworking, and I just really appreciate that you were able to pull this in 2 weeks before we planned to do it. So thank you.
I'll second that one.
Okay, so we had a couple of minutes. We had a resignation that is in your drive, school board folk, if you haven't seen that. Jackie, did you want to say anything, or do you want people to take time to go read it now?
There's a resignation letter from Kendra Kearney in your drive. So I'm looking just for a motion to accept that.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to accept with regrets. Do I have a second?
I'm heartbroken, but I'll accept if that's what she wants.
Yeah, it's a really hard year to be a social worker. That's for sure.
Oh, yes.
So I don't know if you guys want to take a minute to read through this or you're all
I
set.
can't get another screen up when I have Zoom.
Okay. It's
So
it's
I
a very
can't-
nice, very sad letter, but yeah. Okay. All right. So we have a motion, a second. We have a roll call vote to accept with regrets. Sarah. Looking for her mute.
Yes,
Yes. Daniel,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes, and Kendra, you'll always be remembered.
yes, and Wendy, yes. Okay. And then Jackie has an FYI she wanted to share about a grant.
So two actually. So the ESSER 2 money is the COVID funds. We have that allocation. It came in, and we need a public hearing in order to use those funds. We will later get the ESSER 3 funds and also need a hearing to accept and use those funds. So I'd like to add either at 6 o'clock on April 20th or at 5:45 on April 20th, the public hearing. And related to that, so we'll move ahead with that as long as there are no objections. And then related to that, back when we were doing the budget process, one of the things that got taken out of the budget was the clinical support and SEL support at Weare Middle School, the ESS program. And since then, we've continued to work with the clinician, and that has been invaluable. As we look at how to use ESSER funds to really meet SEL needs, we would like to use those funds to continue the program through next year. So I intend to move forward with that, and you'll see that as we go through the accounting of, as we keep bringing you back and keeping you updated on how we're spending the grant money.
Okay. And SEL is?
Oh, I'm sorry, social emotional learning, mental health support. We also, there's some special education support. There are some opportunities to support some of our students coming back into the district from out of district placements. We didn't have enough information when we were going through the budget process for me to defend the program because it was new. We now do, and I think the grant funds are the perfect use. It's what the ESSER funds are supposed to be used for, that sort of thing.
And certainly social emotional learning is taking a hit this year with all the changes and stress, and that makes sense. You don't need a motion for that, right? That's just how you've chosen to spend the funds.
We're
right?
keeping you updated as
Yep.
we go along on how we're using those funds. And so I just want to make sure, I don't think this is way out of whack with anything we've talked about. We certainly would have been proposing it as part of our budget had we not been in a COVID year.
Great. Okay, anything else from the board? I know this is an emergency meeting. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule to squeeze an extra meeting in. Anything else? Okay, our next meeting is the 20th, so that's soon. 12 days. So I'll see y'all again soon. I do need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Christine making a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yeah. Okay, so roll call vote to go back to our lives. Christine,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Wendy, yes. All right. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in 12 days.